I now have the distinct honor of introducing United States Circuit Court Judge Amul Thapar, who will in turn introduce our keynote speaker. Judge Thapar's name often comes up in discussions about the next U.S. Supreme Court justice. Indeed, he was on the short list earlier this year for the seat vacated by Justice Scalia. He is known to be a highly intellectual, thoughtful, and hardworking judge. He received the highest rating possible from the American Bar Association. He was nominated in March of this year and confirmed by the Senate on May 25th for the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which covers Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, and Michigan. For those of you who are not in the legal world and the judging business, this is a big deal. Judge Thapar began his career at the law firm of Williams & Connolly in Washington, D.C. He was appointed to the U.S. District Court of the Eastern District of Kentucky in 2008 by former President George W. Bush. He had earlier served as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Kentucky and Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of Ohio and Washington, D.C. Amul was born in Detroit to parents who immigrated from India. He went to college in Boston and studied law at UC Berkeley. A man with a brilliant legal mind, I'm pleased that he has joined us here today. Will you all please welcome Judge Amul Thapar.
Well, good morning. It's nice to see. Back in my former career, I was U.S. Attorney when I had the greatest job in America, and I spoke to law enforcement a lot, and they too would not sit in the front of the room. So it's amazing. There's something you all have in common already with law enforcement. Maybe eventually when Sam's speaking, we can get people to fill these seats because it will be worth it to be closer to him, not me. So maybe when I walk down and he walks up, that'll be a good time to fill those seats. I did not bring a Beanie Baby. I brought something I think is better. And that's the book Dreamland. Actually, Sam brought it, and I'm using it as a prop since I didn't have a Beanie Baby. So I want to talk for a minute about Sam and how I got to know him and why it's important and why you too should read this book. So I brought him in after reading the book. So Frank Rapier, who used to be the head of HIDA, sent me the book and said, "You got to read this book." And throughout my career, I've been struggling with how to deal with the opiate problem, how to deal with the pain pill problem that's now the heroin problem. And we kept banging our head against the wall as law enforcement and then subsequently as a trial judge that dealt one-on-one with individuals struggling with the problem. Because we only knew one solution, and that was you did the crime, you do the time, we lock you up, you somehow get rehabbed in this facility, and you come back out and you're cured. And we couldn't figure out what we were doing wrong. I mean, this was the first real problem where we were really struggling. And it wasn't until I read this book that I started to understand the problem itself and how to deal with the problem. You have to understand the history to understand where we're at. And so what I did is I brought Sam in to talk to all the Sixth Circuit judges and all the trial judges. And I asked him to come in and talk to them. And I made them a promise, and I'm going to make you the same promise. First of all, can I ask, how many of you have read this book? Okay, so you're better than judges. We tend not to read things outside our profession. But here's the promise I'm going to make, is if you buy this book and read it, and you don't like it, I will reimburse you for it. You have to send me the book so I can give it to someone that has the brains. But I will do that. So I just see my prop's working here, and I'm even going to read off the prop. You can't read off a Beanie Baby. But in 2015, this was given the National Book Critics Circle Award. It also has a bunch of other awards on back, and I want to point out a couple. One is Entertainment Weekly. So even if you're thinking, I'm going to learn nothing from Sam because I know it all, you're going to be entertained, right? Well, let me tell you I'm just going to give you a brief history of Sam because when he graduated from UC Berkeley, yes, all brilliant people go to Berkeley. We couldn't get into Kentucky, don't worry. When he graduated from Berkeley, he decided to embark on a career in journalism and started at the Orange County Register. And he was there in 1987 and worked that and other jobs in journalism, but he left and lived in Mexico for 10 years and worked as a freelance reporter. And he did that from 1994 to 2004, and then he came back to the United States and worked for the LA Times and other journals. But in 2013, he took a leave of absence to write this book. But what I'll tell you is when you read the book, and those that have read it, because of his understanding of Mexico, and because of his understanding of America, and then his dive into the history of the problem, he really brings the problem to life in these pages. And he tells you where it came from and how we got to where we're at. And the only way we are going to solve the problem, and yes, we are going to solve the problem, the only way we're going to do it is taking law enforcement, judges, and you all, and working together. Because we can't do it alone. We can't lock it up, right? Someone said their prison grew from 3,000 to 23,000. Another speaker said 90 deaths a year. That was in 2015. In 2016, it went up to about 175 deaths a year. Think about a day. Think about that. An airplane crashing every day and killing everyone on board would make national news. Every day. That happens in this country every day because of this problem. We have an airplane crashing every day. And so until we understand the problem and where it came from and work together to deal with it, we're not going to solve it. And you've got to read this book to start. So now I will get off the stage and let you hear the real reason you came to this session. And while I do so, remember these front seats, some communities got to fill it. The law enforcement community will not. So you all have to take a first step. All right? Thank you all very much.